really the heart and soul of where we started is in the Corvallis and Philomath area, and our office is in Corvallis. And actually, one of your neighbors right over here that renovated Soft Star Shoes, Alan Ayers, is doing our building, which is the one right next to Wade Hardware, the big building going up, which is the Confluence Center. So that'll be our future home in the coming years.
Sorry about that.
You can pause for one moment if you'd like to, so you can have your slideshow back.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, it just.
It's not working.
Well,
Well,
there we go.
there we go. It's
We're
good.
Okay, great. So first of all, what is a land trust? You know, not everybody knows, not everybody comes into a conversation really having experience with different land trusts. So I'll give you kind of the high level pieces of it, which is pretty much everywhere you are in the US, there's a land trust working in that area, whether you know it or not, to conserve land. Collectively, almost about 1,000 land trusts across the US have collectively protected over 61 million acres. It's actually probably a lot higher. That number was updated last in 2020, and we're on the edge of updating it again. That's more than all the national parks combined. So you just think about private land conservation, and whether that's a regional organization like Greenbelt, whether that's a really local one just working on one town, or whether that's the Nature Conservancy that works all around the world but has state chapters. So those are kind of differences. We're nonprofits, all independent of each other, and essentially we're working to protect important places, working forests and farms, and critical habitats, riverways, trails, whatever the case may be, you know, in perpetuity. All right, here's a map of Oregon, a little bit outdated, but you can see where Greenbelt is sandwiched in the Willamette Valley. We work across 7 counties, which is Benton, Lynn, Marion, Polk, Yamhill, and southern Clackamas, and a little bit of northern Lane County as well. So a pretty broad service area, and even that is sometimes a surprise to people that think that maybe we're you know, Benton County only. There's about 30 land trusts in Oregon. We all work very collaboratively with one another. So here is a little bit dialed in of a snapshot into Greenbelt service area here. And again, formed in 1989, we've protected over 6,000 acres and quickly counting in the next couple of years. About 40 properties and anywhere from 17 to 20 staff. We have a couple new staff coming on. And I want you to know that this is how we look at the world. So we have our vision statement, which is a healthy, thriving environment for all. That's pretty big, broad, right? You know, we do that by our mission, which is conserving land and water in the Willamette Valley for a more resilient future. And then we do all of our work through the lens of 3 things. So all of our work should be focused on climate resilience, community well-being, and social justice, and either all or one of those as we work forward on each of our sort of strategies for conservation. I also want you to know that not only has Greenbelt expanded its service area from, you know, that 1989 beginning in Benton County across the Willamette Valley, but we've also expanded really the work that we do. And we're in an era of incredible growth, trajectory of growth, and increasing the pace and scale of conservation right now. And that's just one way to look at it, through acres protected. And that trajectory of growth just over the last 2 years, if we were sitting here in 10 years or 20 years, I could only imagine that's gonna even have a larger you know, incline than what it is now. We're looking at, you know, potentially 30,000 acres in the next 10 to 15 years. So that's kind of where things are at Greenbelt. I also really want you to know that just as much as conservation and protection of land is important for us, we have the biggest team on our staff is actually in stewardship and habitat restoration, because we're working on properties that co-evolved with disturbance and fire. And so they don't, as we all know, you can't buy a property and just leave it, and there'll be blackberry and hawthorn and all kinds of things. And so we're really looking at transforming landscapes and thinking about habitat restoration, whether that's looking at ag fields on the Willamette River floodplain that, you know, a farmer, 7th generation farmer, has lost his crop every 3 years because it gets inundated, and all of that, you know, financial resiliency he's put into this patch of dirt has now gone down the river. And so we have farmers that come to us talking about, hey, this part here, it was not meant to be, you know, crop. This is meant to be something else. So here we're taking, ag land on the right next to the Willamette River and planting 100,000 trees, which then in 3 years are starting to transform into a floodplain forest. And maybe 5 to 10 years later, we're looking at 30-foot cottonwoods and an entirely transformed, landscape that holds water, that provides refugia for Chinook salmon fry, and really has so many different kind of expanded community public health benefits. Or some people think of us as only planting trees, and restoration a lot of times is about taking out trees. And so we have active working forests here on Mulkey Ridge. I'm just going to dial into one property where we've done a variety of different forest thinning projects. And here's a view, I mentioned, taking fire off the landscape. As we see, Bald Hill used to be bald. It's not bald anymore, as that was a name for a reason. And this is right near there. So we have conifers that are, coming down, and they take over the sun from essentially the oaks. And we love our oaks. We want the species that go along with the oaks. And, so in certain areas, we have prescriptive opportunities to think about habitat restoration uplift for oaks. That includes large-scale multi-year harvests and transforming that same landscape into an oak woodland that 1 to 2 years later also has a lush prairie underneath of it and been seeded with things like river lupin. And all of that prairie work is really driven through different imperiled species, some of which are 2 to 3 populations left remaining. And so we have Oregon vesper sparrow, Fender's blue butterfly, and Taylor's checker spot butterfly, all which are finding sanctuary on these properties and finding opportunities to expand their genetic diversity and increase their populations. I also want you to know that a big part of Greenbelt is education and community engagement, and it's really central to what we do and who we are. And of course, we have universities nearby, so we work a lot with universities, and that's from hosting, properties as essentially learning labs for different research projects for different departments and different professors, leading hikes, etc. We just do so much with Western Oregon, Lynn Benton, with Oregon State University, a variety. And that also includes, last year we had over 500 volunteers. We have an active volunteer program. These are volunteers that were building Mulkey Ridge Trail between Fitton Green and Bald Hill Farm several years ago. Or the over 100 walks were held last year and outings that are free, open to the public on a variety of topics. Here's a woman, Sunya Yang, leading a lichen walk for people. So, all of them, if you ever want to come on a walk, I would recommend sign up early. They all get filled and they all have a wait list, and we're trying to figure out how to just add more because there's such an appetite for this. That also includes working with a lot of high school students and training them both to go on to professional careers, maybe in conservation or wherever that may be, but also to be trained as educators of 3rd and 5th graders and kind of completing this cycle of education in our local communities. So I wanted to take a minute to talk to you about 2 properties that are within a stone's throw of where we are right now, and see if you have any questions about them. One is Lupin Meadows, and Lupin Meadows has this beautiful tree on it, but it's 58 acres. It's within the urban growth boundary of Philomath, and essentially, if you know where it is, you're coming from Corvallis on West Hills Road, and you make a big bank turn, and there's kind of a bluff sort of next to you, and it comes into 19th Street. That whole bluff and that property right there, and Newton Creek is running along the edge of it, is Lupin Meadows. And we acquired that through 2 different sort of transactions in 2005 and 2007. Really for its upland and wet prairie opportunities. It has a healthy population of Fender's blue butterfly and its host plant, Kincaid's lupin. So a beautiful property, and one that really brought us into a lot of conversations with the city of Philomath in the early 2000s as we were considering that property. And that brings up a sort of topic of when does Greenbelt work within urban growth boundaries or within urban settings in general? It's pretty rare for us, first of all. Less than 5% of our work is in any type of urban growth boundary or urban setting. And that is potentially, as we move forward and have different partnerships, maybe that changes in the future. Maybe there's opportunities to think about other trails or parks or different opportunities that we could play a role in. But historically, we've been very careful to make sure that we're not thwarting development. We agree with comprehensive growth plans. We are there as a partner to think about how can we have both housing and business development and community growth and access to nature and conservation. And so really deeply thinking about when and why we work in any way within urban growth boundaries. And with that in mind, really that looks like working with the local government, having a lot of conversations when we talk about a property, Oak Creek Preserve, within the urban growth boundary of Corvallis. And we took 2 years of conversations with different people within the city of Corvallis and got a lot of feedback. Ultimately got support letters from all of them, just like this one, which was from the city manager at the time in Philomath, supporting our acquisition of that property, which is in a heavy industrial zoning type there. So again, these are some of those kind of like multifaceted properties where it's not just an easy yes, like, hey, we need to come in and really understand the lay of the land here and what our role is and how we don't stand amidst other community goals. And one example of that would be a legal overlay on a property like Lupin Meadows, which is called a conservation easement. We're going to go in and write in there that utility lines can go across it, sewer can go across it, so it's not creating an island, you know, between development and future plans. The other one is Oak Creek Preserve. So this straddles into Philomath and, Benton County generally, and up through Corvallis and the Mac Forest. Essentially, Wren to Adair, is the path between all of these different properties. Oak Creek Preserve was kind of that last missing middle Oreo stuffing piece there in red. And it had been on our vision board and all the Benton County Natural Areas Master Plans for decades and decades, and finally acquired that in 2022 with the landowners. And so over time, all of those properties have been kind of coming in over the last 30 years into the fold. And now we're working on finalizing the trail corridor components of that so that really one day, I don't know how many people are actually going to be walking the whole thing, but there are more opportunities to get into the trail system too. You don't have to just drive out to Oak Creek or something like that to get into it. And I bring this up because both proximity to Philomath, but also one thing we've talked about a lot is there is an abundance of trails just on the other side of Philomath that most of the access is coming from Corvallis side into them. Why? Why can't we think about getting access to this beloved trail system without having somebody in Philomath to get in their car and drive around or, get to a trailhead? So I think there's opportunities there to think about that. And that's just one example. I think there are other opportunities tied to your visioning work that you're doing and where natural areas and parks are needed. And our doors open and, ready to talk about what role that might be. This is a rendering of Oak Creek Preserve, which is undergoing habitat restoration right now. It looks beautiful. It kind of looks like that right now without the trail. And then we'll be putting in a trail as one of those next components. So that's the end of my 10 minutes. And I just wanted to thank you guys again and open the door for opportunities for collaboration, not just in these 3 minutes remaining, but also in the future. And, contact me anytime.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And I guess I'll give some context that I think you and I got coffee like 8 months ago or something. So I apologize that it's taken this long to actually do this. But part of the reason I reached out was just that same idea of the fact that Greenbelt lands literally come into Philomath, and yet we feel pretty disconnected from them. And so just thinking about kind of what future potentials are for, not developing those lands, obviously, but having some recreational access through them to get to the existing opportunities. So thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah.
Any questions?
I'll just say thank you for the job you do, because the beauty all around us we don't always appreciate, and then when we finally take a moment to do so, thank goodness for people like you that's preserving this, because it would be too easy for otherwise. And I think our cross-country team goes to Oak Creek and they run through the trails.
They go through the Mulkey. We see the runners going by. Also, I want to mention some other collaborations we've had with Philomath. Philomath Fire Department has done a prescribed burn on Lupin Meadows with us before. All right.
I actually managed that.
Very successful, wonderful.
I literally was on the ground and managed the whole bird.
So I wish I would have put a photo of that burn. Great. Well, that's wonderful. We've also worked with Philomath Middle School, a previous staff member who's actually passed away, Jeff Mitchell, if anybody remembers him, beloved person. His students had all the bicycles and came out to Lupin Meadows and used that as a research site for years. And so those are just a couple of the examples of things that we've done in the past, but so many opportunities in the future. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Great.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I've got a 9-year-old at home, so I'm going to head out.
Yes. Thank you. I'm sure we'll follow up. Appreciate you being here. Okay, next up, I'll invite our joint leadership team from Cascades West and CSC.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening.
Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Council. Thank you so much for having us. A number of you are used to seeing me, Ryan Vogt, as the Executive Director for the Cascades West Council of Governments. I am now also the Executive Director for the Community Services Consortium, our local community action agency. I'll let Paul introduce himself and then we'll dig in.
Hello, everyone. Paul Egbert, the newish agency director for Cascades West Council of Governments. I've been on the job since March of last year.
So you all have quite a bit of information in your packet, I think, and we are hoping that next year we can consolidate some of this information. So you have an annual report for Cascades West. You also have an annual report for Community Services Consortium. And then you have a 1-page or 2-pager about Cascades West footprint here specifically in Paloma.
Yep.
And that was a commitment that I made a handful of years ago, was to try and make sure that you all had access to information about the regional footprint of the organization, but to distill it down so you can answer the kind of the so what question. Like it's good to know that you're working in the region. It's great to know that you're here in Benton County, but what does that mean for us here in Philomath? And so this is a product of that commitment that I made a couple of years ago. Next year, I'm certainly hopeful that we can begin to combine this information across the two organizations. And if I have my way, if not next year, in 2 years, we'll have the 1-pager, or probably more like a 5-pager, that talks about the intersection of the two organizations and what that means for Philomath. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Community Services Consortium because that's a newer hat for me, and then I'll turn it over to Paul, who's now taking care of Cascades West. So for those of you who may not be familiar with Community Services Consortium, the two organizations have been working very closely together for the last 6 years. And the boards of the two organizations have really asked us to do that because of a couple things. One is we are both formed as local government entities, voluntarily formed under Oregon Revised Statute 190. And we both serve the same region, Linn, Benton, and Lincoln County. And we have lots of crossover population. Both organizations work predominantly, or a large portion of our footprint is really working with seniors and people who are low income. And the Community Action Agency, Community Services Consortium, is a federally designated anti-poverty agency. So really everybody we touch at Community Services Consortium is below the poverty threshold, generally speaking. And that service array is everything from housing supports to helping people keep the lights on to really addressing food insecurity. We run the Linn Benton Food Share. We run Head Start program in Lincoln County. Well, we do, and we now are running the health-related social needs work through the Intercommunity Health Network, where we are helping people remain stably in their home, helping get people the skills they need to re-enter or advance in the workplace, and also helping people with their utility assistance and things of that nature. The crossover between the two organizations is really one of the things our two boards wanted us to focus on, to try and find ways to be administratively more efficient and to remove barriers for people who access services from both organizations. On the administrative side, we've been extremely successful. Between the two organizations, We have one HR department. We have one IT team. We have one communications team. We are in the process of, we have one person who's currently co-leading the two finance teams. And we are co-located in Corvallis and looking at future co-location opportunities, all with the goal of trying to free up resources and make ourselves more available so that people who approach our organizations at arguably one of the most vulnerable times in their lives can walk in one door, tell their story one time, and get access to the entire menu of services that are available to them. You have information about the annual impact report from Community Services Consortium in there. In the interest of time, I'm not going to belabor that for you, but I'm more than happy to answer questions as we get there. But with that, I'll turn it over to Paul.
Thanks, Ryan. You have a similar report from Cascades West Council of Governments, and we are the area agency on aging services here, so you'll see a lot of those things reflected here. I think, or I understand that some of our folks from Community Economic Development may have been out a couple of weeks ago and shared some information about some of the things that are happening here in Philomath, ways that the city of Philomath is being served through the efforts of Community Economic Development. So
that was at the chamber luncheon.
Okay.
The chamber luncheon.
Okay, great. I first just want to say how grateful I am to your city manager, your mayor, for their involvement, board members as people that in our region that give input, that help influence the decisions we make. One of the deliverables that was on my plate as part of my responsibilities was to help the agency refresh the strategic plan, which we've done, and we released July 1. And just want to speak to our three priority areas, our three strategies, if you will. Customer service is very important, right? If we can deliver our services in a better way and be more effective and meet the needs of our consumers in the region, that'll help our member jurisdictions and the people that live in these communities. And we want to be a strong community partner in that way. Secondly, we're focused on organizational excellence, right? Leveling up wherever we can in all the corners of our organization, in all the things that we do, looking for ways to add value. So we're very interested in what do the member jurisdictions need from us? What are they looking for us to do in terms of services? How can we provide and add value there? And then get better at doing the core work that we do as well. And then we're uniquely positioned in convening. So that's our third strategic priority, is bringing people together, not to tell them what the solution is to the problems we're seeking to solve, but as we convene them, they'll come together and figure out the problems or the solutions to the problems that they're wrestling with. So we're uniquely positioned to help with that convening, to give avenues and venues for that. So that's what we focused on over the next 5 years, is those three areas of work and engaging in the region and with the member jurisdictions. So hopefully you'll see quality in those areas, and you'll have your needs met as we work to do that. I do want to highlight a couple of things that may be important to this group. I'm always appreciative and proud of what the Meals on Wheels programs do in the community, and 924 meals served here in Philomath, and beyond the meals that get served to these individuals that need it, there's a social connection, right? There's a check on people. There's an opportunity to for people to have that contact as well as a meal. So that's a very important service that we perform. And then the Senior Health Insurance Benefits Assistant Program, which we refer to as SHEBA, that acronym, helping people understand through one-on-one counseling. These are up to an hour in length, these appointments, and understanding Medicare and navigating that. So 57 people in Philomath were recipients of that service. And so far this year, calendar year, 25 people have had that opportunity to sit down with someone and navigate the complexity of Medicare and how to.
What page is that? Is it
It's on the second page, top right corner.
In the separate packet, yeah.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
The second page of the Philomath annual report. And then I thought this was really neat. We have foster grandparent programs, and there's a foster grandparent that's placed at the Philomath Elementary School. And over the last school year, 968 direct service hours impacting 5 young people in the school who struggle with different things, and saw improvement with all 5 students as a result of that effort. So these are the little things that happen with people directly, whether it's a meal, a contact, a foster grandparent, and when you condense these big programs down to these smaller contacts, they really do make a difference. So just wanted to highlight a few things for you that might be of interest there, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Wonderful. Thank you both very much. And I really appreciate the Philomath specific report. I feel like something we talk a lot about with Cascades West is that it's this sort of like, it can feel like a very nebulous, faceless organization, and I think this helps bring it home of what's actually happening in our community. And I'll just really quick say I've enjoyed being on the board and now recently on the executive committee for Cascades West, and I really appreciate all the work they do. And I also just want to highlight the last thing from that strategic plan of being that kind of convener. I know we talked about that a lot, where it's a really great opportunity where we have all the local governments in the region in one room. And I think we haven't really tapped into what that could be, especially as we're all facing very similar challenges around funding and federal government cutbacks and things like that we're all navigating together. It's a good opportunity for us to all kind of check in with each other and talk about how we want to navigate those since they affect all of us. So I'm excited to dive into that a little more. But thank you both very much. Any questions or comments from the council? Oh, please. Yes, Councilor Crocker.
I feel terrible. I am one of the helpers for a senior group here in Philomath. And while I've heard of you, I had no idea what a resource you would be. Do you give talks to seniors about what you offer? Is there anybody that
Absolutely
does that? And so do I call the Aging Disability Resource line, or is there something else who do I contact?
You could, or you could just contact one of us and we can get you in touch with someone who can do that.
Great.
We'd love to send people out to talk about the programs and what's available.
Yeah, and I had somebody call me about senior disability services, and I was at a loss of where to send them, and now I know, and I feel so terrible that I didn't know this. But thank you for doing this. And okay, we're taking a break until September, so we'll call you in the fall. For sure.
Chris knows how to get a hold of us, so he can give you that contact information.
And in the meantime, if you do have anybody else in the community who's interested, before we can get out and have the chat with you, absolutely funnel them right through the ADR team.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
That's kind of a one-stop shop for listening to a little bit of what people's needs are and helping them find resources, even if those resources aren't ours.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'll just say in general, like, I know Commissioner Malone describes Cascades West as sort of a friendly octopus. I think for us as a council, it can also be helpful to think about it in terms of like, what are those things that it wouldn't make sense for us to have an entire department dedicated to? So instead we share that department with all, like, it wouldn't make sense for Philomath to have an entire department for aging and seniors, and it wouldn't make sense for Monroe to have an entire department for aging and seniors. So instead we formed this regional partnership to do things like that, and transportation planning and everything that we can kind of share. So in general, they're a great resource for things like that. Yes.
And I just wanted to also acknowledge the staff. I get that not deal with them, but work with them. He's that way, part of Campo, right?
Yes.
And all of that, and everything that has to do in working with ODOT and how it's managed is superb. You just want to know those folks, they really do. I mean, there's a lot of things to contend with the current sort of climate and what they're having, you know, and it's magic. It really is. So great work. I'm be happy with staff. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Wonderful. Any other thoughts or questions?
I just want to add one little tidbit,
Yeah.
just because it's a common name. Past city council member Matt Lehman, if you remember, resigned from his position on city council because he took a job at Cascades West, and he's worked his way up very quickly. He's the manager of economic development, or he's director of economic development. I don't know if it's manager, director of economic development at Cascades West. So he's overseeing a large amount of work that's being done in our region now in a very short amount of time. Shows you the caliber of council members that we have here in Philomath. But also,
I'm the one that actually filled this spot.
Oh, there you go.
So, and my reward was being with Campo and everything else.
Yeah, you get
It's a deal for you.
but it's friendly faces.
Yeah, very much.
A lot of
That's great to do.
interchange with them, and they host the monthly city managers luncheon that I attend, where I get to collaborate with other city managers, and we get to consult each other and talk through things and strategize about things and talk again regionally how we're doing things differently. So again, they're a great convener and great partner for our region. They do a great job. Thank you.
Chris. Appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you all.
Soon. You're welcome to stick around, but there's no expectation.
Fix something.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up on our agenda, we have public comment. I have just one person signed up. Andrew, is that the only person who wants to comment? Okay. Just want to make sure everyone has a chance. And we don't have anyone online, right? Okay, then Andrew, please go ahead and come up. And I'm just going to read my quick statement I have to read before our public comment. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. A 30-second warning will be provided. Speakers should provide their name and city of residence. Those who attend public meetings are required to adhere to the council's rules of proceedings and observe the same standards of decorum as members of the council. Further, at the discretion of the presiding officer, members of the public who fail to observe these rules of procedure will be asked to discontinue speaking and not be allowed to speak again for the remainder of the meeting. So on that friendly note, please go ahead.
No problem.
Thank you for being here.
My name's Andy Bumstead, or Andrew Bumstead. I go by Andy. I've been a resident of Philomath for 15 years. I run a small construction business here in town. And I wanted to comment on the police levy issue that my understanding is you're voting on tonight. I am against it, and if I've got any of the facts wrong, please give me grace. I may not be entirely informed, but I'm not so much against the proposed dollar amount. My understanding is that there was floated a $14 fee, and then that was unpopular, and so now it's thought that maybe it'll be $5 fee. That's not why I'm here. I'm here because I feel like the mechanism that you're using to raise funds is a poor option. I feel like calling it a fee is not being genuine. It's a tax, and it should be on a levy, and it should be given to the voters. And I just felt like, I understand this is a hard job, and you're trying to make ends meet and all of that, and I sympathize with that. But it was just July 4th, 250 years as a country, no taxation without representation. I think we can all vibe with that on some level. And so for me, it's just give it to the voters. If it's fair, if this is what we need, let us decide. If it's not, then, whatever. And I get that that's hard and that kicks things down the road and all of that. But having a lever for you to add revenue whenever you decide to do that,
30 seconds.
then we all know that lever's gonna get pulled, right? It's gonna start at whatever, and then we're gonna run into some other problem, and that lever's gonna get pulled again. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. All right, last call. Okay. Then I guess I'm gonna just do a little, so as I mentioned at the beginning, we have to do this executive session where we talk with the attorney. Do you want to stick around for the vote? Or, because we have, for an executive session with the attorney, it's about a separate issue, but we have to have everyone leave the room for a little bit while we talk about it. Then we can have you come back in, which feels weird. So I'm trying to figure out, do you know how flexible, like if we just jump to the police ordinance? Or I don't know how flexible Ashley is.
She is online right now.
Okay.
I'm here, and
Hey,
I
Ashley.
was, hi. I am on the road, but I am here, and I think, I appreciate you being so accommodating, but whatever you all need to do, you can do, and I'm here and I'm listening.
Okay. Then I think I'm gonna just jump ahead to item F2, ordinance 895, police services fee. Just so I think that would be fair to say probably has the most public interest, and we can get that out of the way, and then we can section. So apologies, Crystal, for so that is on page 23 of your packet, and let me pull that up. And Mr. Bumstead did a good job of summarizing the history of, as you all know, this was originally the $14 per month city services fee, which encompassed other things as well. In the budget that we adopted at our last meeting, that budget assumed that that would go down to a $5 per month fee, and the council directed staff to make that be exclusively for police services. As Chelsea, I think, mentioned to everyone in an email, this ordinance 895 does not set the amount. This just sets the structure for like how it's collected is. Then the next item in the agenda is the actual amount. Which that I think, and Ashley, you're actually here. This was your structure of doing it. That's similar to how we do our other utility fees. We don't have the amount in the ordinance. We have the amount set by resolution.
That's
so we
correct.
wanted to keep, perfect. We just wanted to keep that consistent with how we do other billing. I don't know if staff wants to add anything before we move on to deliberations.
The last thing I'll add is that we did put the emergency clause on this. Just a matter of timeliness, the budget that was passed included 12 months of collecting this fee. Without the emergency clause, it's not even effective for 30 days. Then we start billing, we wouldn't bill it for another 30 days after that. So we'll be a couple of months into the budget, which will have an impact on the budget with the way the budget was passed. And so with the emergency clause on, whether it gets approved by first reading tonight or second reading later this month, we would still start charging the fee as early as the first of next month of August. And then the payments would come due when the August bill goes out in September. So we'd still be well over 30 plus days of like notice to the public of when it would be paid. But having the emergency clause on it saves us essentially a month worth of revenue coming in that otherwise we won't be collecting. So it's a matter, we still may have to tweak the budget a little bit, like a month's worth, because we're coming in July and August, but we're trying to limit that as much as possible so we don't have to go back in and tweak the budget.
Thank you. Councilor Crocker.
Well, I have comments and questions. Should I wait?
I get anything else from staff?
So,
Okay.
Okay.
Please.
I am concerned that it's awfully broad. It doesn't specify. It just says it's to help the police department. So my understanding was this was to help retain our police officers and going to go towards their compensation because they're so much lower than all the area groups. Is it true that this can also be used for equipment or operating costs, or is it just for the salaries like I thought it was?
This is going to go to the police department, so that department within the general fund. And it'll support the budget that the budget committee and the city council's approved already. So that shows the dollar amounts for personnel and for materials and services. So that's what this will support.
Please.
I also want to add, because the term salaries has been thrown around a lot in a lot of our meetings, but when you look at the answers that we provided in budget committee, it's not just for salaries, it's for compensation, our insurance benefits going up, certifications that are costing us more. It's generally to provide the things that the police officers need to keep them working here and keep them functioning for the police officers. So I just want to be cautious. I know that we did write that in a lot of our answers. And so I hope that everyone did see that. We do have documentation of some of that we were responding with. But just to be cautious that it's not directly for, this dollar amount is not directly going just to the police salaries.
Compensation.
Right.
Compensation, I can understand, the insurance and overtime or training, I get that. But it doesn't say, does it say that somewhere in here? That's going to compensation for the police department?
I think it generally just specifies it to the general fund police department. Yeah.
So who's in charge of where that's spent? Is that chief or is that somebody else?
The city council's approved budget is what's going to direct that. So it'll be based on the budget the city council approved.
There is some concern in the community about that part, that they would like it to go to the compensation. I can say compensation rather than salary, that's fine, but
Yeah.
of our police officers and not just equipment or operating costs. This wasn't just out of my mind. This
Yeah.
was.
I mean, I would point them to the budget itself then and show them that materials and services in the police department has been reduced.
Sure.
And the compensation, the personnel expenses has what's increased, so.
Sure, that was my understanding, but because it didn't say compensation anywhere in this ordinance that I could find, I was concerned.
I guess, and I'm not taking an opinion on this one way or another, I just think, we talked about the way we structured this is similar to other fees. And I think that's the same as, when we collect the street fee, that can be spent on the compensation for the street workers, but it can also be spent on materials and service. It goes into the street department budget or the street fund. And so I think this is structured the same way where it goes to the police department budget, and then it's up to the council and the chief.
So the police officers do not have any reassurance that this is going to help their compensation where they could get paid much more somewhere else.
Well, their compensation was like the amount that we're paying them was increased in the budget.
And that's a done deal, then, and it says that it's going to be increased that much.
But we appropriated a dollar amount for compensation in the budget, so yes. Yeah.
The ordinance doesn't mention, it just says police service fee and community spirit and quality of life, which but
May I ask a clarifying question? Like, would it be helpful to say something about it being fulfilling contracted obligation? Because that is pretty much all compensation, right?
Yes, I mean,
I don't know if that's a policy thing or something you put in an ordinance or what.
I guess
I would ask Ashley, our city attorney, maybe Ashley, if you're still listening, if you could weigh in a little bit. I know that you are one of the attorneys that's been working with us in the whole process of police services fee, and then we're working on police negotiations still. So I just want to remind you all of that. But the mayor is correct. We have budgeted a dollar amount that this is encompassing. So that in good faith, we are, you've given us some direction and guidance, and we are bargaining under that. So I don't think the ordinance specifically, unless you all disagree or a majority of you disagree, has to say that. And I think Ashley could weigh in on the making this ordinance be a little broader, but it does specify it's not for replacing, facilities or doing facility related work. It does specify that. Ashley, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not your labor negotiation attorney, but from what I understand, that is the intent, right? Is like you said, you have stated in your budget what the salaries will be, and so you're not that is a commitment that the city has already made. I don't know if you need to make it again in this ordinance. This ordinance is specifically saying for this separate area that you will potentially be raising funds in, or that you'll be creating this fee for, it may go towards salaries and it may go towards other things that the police need. And so I think specifically we aren't calling out salaries in this ordinance. It is broader than that. But that doesn't mean salaries won't be increased. I think that's already been stated and committed to by the council in your budget.
I think that's the exact concern, is that it can be used for something else. And if we're negotiating, that's weird to negotiate when we have a budget that says this is how much you're going to get paid. How do we negotiate anything other than that?
Councilor Caseman?
I was just gonna say, maybe I don't fully understand, but I think the last whereas says the city council approved the budget. And so this is a funding mechanism for the approved budget. Maybe I'm just looking at it too simply, but that's how I would approach it. I mean, I understand, if you've heard that from people, I understand kind of the conceptually what they're saying, but it was the approved budget. This is the funding mechanism for that.
Yeah. There's also.
Yeah, just to kind of expand on that point a little bit, it's almost sort of the reverse, that we don't manage the line by line things of the budget. We just manage the budget. How they fund themselves is all inside their budget, of which we get sort of that rough outline. And we say, yes, that's it, but that's all the money they get. But they could, within their own budget, they could do transfers and things like that, but that's a thing. You know what I mean? That has to go through approval processes, and I'm only speaking from experience in the fire department, because we had to go through the same thing when we got the bond, for example. That bond was very specific, because a bond is limited to this box. That's all I got. But how it got spent once it's in the box wasn't a part of the bond. The bond is just the funding mechanism. That's the same thing here. It's just providing the funding in addition to the other funding which is already existing. So we had a certain amount of money that's coming out of the city's general fund for that department specifically. This is an adjunct to that. And at the end of the day, it's one of those things that I trust the police chief to say, this is, if we've got to give up paper clips or something like that, in order to be able to meet the contract, then that's what we're going to do. So it's a matter of our trusting the police chief to be able to manage his budget that we approved, that kind of thing.
If the police chief got to control this, and the answer was no, the city council controlled that it was being used for.
The chief makes the final decision after the council approves the general outline.
I mean, so I guess maybe, yes, the council decides where this money goes.
Where the police.
Where the pot.
Yes, and then once it's.
Yeah, we've already,
Okay.
we've agreed on that, I
Yeah,
believe, but I just,
Yeah,
was
I,
listening to concerns
yeah,
about that it doesn't really say
sure.
that it's going, and some people are assuming that it is, and some people are saying, wait a minute, it doesn't say that anywhere. And is the rug gonna be pulled out from underneath them
Oh, okay.
when it's all done?
I guess I'll just say, I hear that concern. Well, I haven't heard that concern specifically, but I hear what you're saying now. And I think, I mean, I think if you want to move to amend it, we can consider that. I think that's worth, a discussion, but I guess I would also just say, like, having some flexibility in there might be nice, because right now, the compensation is what's lacking for police officers. What if we get to a point where the compensation is okay, but all the cars are falling apart and their firearms don't work and the equipment is all, 20 years old? And then we're like, well, sorry, we can't buy you new stuff because the ordinance we passed said it could only be spent on compensation. Like, I
But
would,
we have budgeted items for vehicles and weapons, and that's not what this is about. This is about the
well, that's the
salary.
point, is this just goes to the department for what the most pressing needs.
See, that's where it gets too wishy-washy.
Sure, and you're welcome to vote no or make a motion. I'm sharing my thoughts on it too. But yeah.
Where would I put this motion?
I guess any other discussion on this ordinance?
So, sorry.
Councilor Andrade?
Just that I understand that the reason why this is coming to like a fee is that there were many different factors that were either unforeseen or like delays and such. And like I understand how it got here, and also I feel like there were a series of like places where it would have been helpful to kind of have more information and move forward with our conversation, because like we originally were leaning towards a levy. There was a time constraint, et cetera, lots of discussion. But what it comes down to is like, I agree, I do think it should be taken to the people for voting. It feels not okay. It feels sneaky. I know it's not meant to be sneaky and that there's like a reason why it got here this way. And also like, it just doesn't feel good. And then the other part, especially I think, was just like when we got the budget, realizing like what the scope of the shortfall was. It felt kind of out of the blue. Like I knew we had gotten warnings of like, hey, we're gonna have a lot less money to like do things and stuff, but it just, the context for it, like, PERS is going up this amount, and all of these other kinds of increases in whatchamacallit, cost of living, it's cost of materials and stuff. But like, we don't have good context for that. I would argue most of us don't. I don't. And so then when we finally saw the actual number, it was just kind of astounding. And then also just the fact that like, I get contracting was difficult, trying to get a meeting together with the police department, and like it just, the attorneys have their schedule and everything, but it was very unfortunate that all of these things happened. So I just, I'll be voting no, so.
Thank you.
I would like to.
Or can I just go to Councilor Salsa really quick and then we'll come back? Thank you. You had something earlier you wanted to share, was that?
Oh, sorry.
Or not, no pressure.
Yeah, sorry.
We can come back.
Yeah, to keep.
Okay. Councilor Crocker.
This is where it comes.
We were voted on to represent our community. And I don't feel it's sneaky for us to make a decision representing the community. I've talked to several members of the community that did not want another fee, and then they said, but I would like to support the police. If it could go just to the police, I would be all for that. And those were the actual words, and my eyes got bigger and bigger as the people were saying that. But, so I don't think we can take everything to the community. If the community's unhappy, they can recall us, me, or whomever. I mean, they do have avenues
Get that, Brad?
to, yeah, it's only me that can do that. If I'm the one that's pushing, I'm on the police committee.
I know.
I see what they do. I see how many arrests they make and how many stops they do. And sometimes their reputation, people online like to rip them apart. And I don't stand for that. I think that's horrible because they are putting their lives on the line for us to keep us safe. And anyway, so, and I feel like as a voted on representative of the community, I have the authority to vote on this.
Thank you. Counselor Salzman?
Yes, and this is just a question, for Councilor Crocker. Is it just for line 23 on page 24, which is kind of where you're pointing, I believe. It just says the police services fee is not intended to improve or replace facilities or directly provide police services outside the city. So that's kind of.
That's arbitrary.
That's a limitation, right? So that's a not something. What you're looking for is this is what it's for, something. Is that a fair assessment? Okay.
Yes.
So if that, and I'm gauging this so that you can actually create a motion, that would probably be the only line in all of this. If you actually recrafted that line, it just said the police services fee is intended to, and what you want to say.
Supplement the compensation to keep them slightly more competitive so we do not lose our officers and that we can recruit good officers in the future.
Okay. Probably not going to. You want to just be really short because, and I'm only doing this because the caution is, this literally will restrict. That would be a restriction of the funds, as if I'm reading that right.
Yeah.
That the funds can only be used to supplement compensation.
That's how it was proposed to us.
Well, I guess,
The thing about fulfilling contracted obligations with.
yeah, I mean, I'll just, the way I view it, I view it as the cost of a police officer.
Right.
And the cost of a police officer includes salary, benefits, equipment, vehicle, right? Like what are you gonna do if you don't have any equipment for the police officer? Just send them out there in a t-shirt?
They
Like,
have more budget than just compensation.
yeah, yes, but I guess,
To say that's all they have and they can't buy new cars or get their cars fixed or something is not accurate, I don't think.
I think we're actually saying the same thing here now. Because I think, yes, I agree. And I think I would want this money to cover the costs of retaining high-quality police officers, which includes providing excellent equipment and provide, like, I guess, I get what you're saying, I just, yeah. But I mean, I agree, we adopted a budget where their salaries will increase in the middle of negotiations, so I hope they're happy. But like, that's not, I guess I also, if 10 years down the road, if a different council really thinks that like maybe every other jurisdiction has a certain type of bulletproof vest and no one wants to work here because we don't have those bulletproof vests, but then we don't have any flexibility for how to spend the money. Like that's part of retention to me. It's like providing training, providing opportunities like that, I guess is where I get a little.
I think so when we say that, it opens the opportunity for us to take compensation away from them, to lower their pay, to pay for equipment.
Can't we do that already? Even if we can do that already. We're paying a lot more than this raises in compensation that we could take away.
And
I don't want to.
Right, that's the point. And you're the council, so you can vote not to. But I don't know.
Yeah, they can't do that anyway because the contract would not allow that.
Right, because they have.
The contract.
That's what I'm saying. If the contract only allows us to go
Well,
according to our budget into compensation.
But the contract is outside of.
This is not the contract.
This is not the contract. All this is the funding mechanism to cover the contract, essentially. But it's the contract that dictates things like wages and salary and insurance and personal protective equipment and all of that sort of stuff. That's in there. That's in the contract. And that's out of our wheelhouse.
We kind of started here, but I'll kind of get us back there. When the city council approves the budget, it's at the department level, and you really don't have any authority beyond that to direct where funding goes within that department. And so, yes, it's a little more general because it only goes to the department. That's the council's level of authority. Beyond that, the city manager, essentially, and my staff are going to direct how that department funding is spent. That goes to the budget review committee, and the budget review committee can have a say on the total dollar amount for the department. But even at that level, and then beyond at the city council level, we're not giving direction at whether it's material services or personnel or it's line items, it's the money to fund the department. And so that's where this fund has got to go. It's got to go to the department. That's the kind of the lowest level that you can get to.
Certainly, I understand that. And if Chief Gursky was allowed to use this, I'm all good with it. But if all of a sudden we say, well, we need new vests, and so we're gonna take away from your compensation and give you new vests,
But they're under a bargaining.
Yeah, so
but not yet.
They are currently.
can I add to
bargaining
that?
unit,
So
yes.
we are looking to negotiate a 3-year contract. So this funding mechanism is to help us with what we all talked about in executive session, fulfill, negotiate a 3-year contract with them. Those wages, compensation, how we're paying for their certifications, there are a lot of things in that contract. Those are all things that we are trying to negotiate for them, with them at this point. So that contract comes back to you, just like the Public Works contract came back to you. So you do have a mechanism where you are essentially saying, as a council, yes, we are ratifying this 3-year contract, which does include lots of things, compensation, how we operate. So that is coming back to you, this is helping us as the mayor or Councilor Salsa said, this is part of us being able to do that. So you do get to review that and you do get to, approve that and ratify that.
I guess again, I get what you're saying. It just feels like it's taken care of through their collective bargaining agreement. Like the council can't just wake up tomorrow and pay them less. We would get sued out the wazoo.
Right, but we're still in negotiations.
But they're currently, we'd have to follow the terms of their expired contract until we adopt it.
No, that's not what I'm concerned
Okay.
about. If we're saying there's whatever the individual division of the $5 fee for each officer, if that's not going to help with compensation, and we're gonna decide to use it on equipment instead, that's not what we were told was needed for the police department to retain. And I'm trying to voice, again, this is not all from me. I am trying to represent that there's some concern.
I guess, so then what are your thoughts about the fact that we did adopt a budget where their compensation was increased?
But then, when you talk about negotiations, that can be changed.
And we would have to vote on that too.
Sure.
Because we
We have to ratify that.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
add that we're negotiating in good faith based off of what we all talked about in executive sessions. So a lot of that is we have received direction from you in executive session, which we can't talk about now openly, we're negotiating, but our intent is to fulfill what you have sent us on the path to do. Our intent is not to come back and That's not what's happening here. We need this so that we can fulfill what you've asked us to fulfill and bring a contract back to you that shows that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe I'm just saying the same thing everybody else did, but the way that I see it is it's the unfortunately necessary mechanism to make the bucket of police money big enough to include enough compensation and to maintain quality officers. And the only thing that I'm aware that we have control over is the size of their bucket, and so I feel like we're obligated to do it. Right, I mean, I guess we could decline
Well, I guess
a contract or whatever,
right,
but we have
yeah.
to have the room there no matter what.
Right.
And
I guess that's my thing. Like, well, but that I guess with all respect to the things about how we only have control over the bucket, we literally do have direct control over the salaries.
Yeah,
Like, we
that's true.
adopt the salary schedule, so that's not some mystery that the chief can change.
Right.
Like, so I guess I'm just a little lost on where the issues come, because like that there we won't accidentally like not do what we want with the salary schedule. That is negotiated and then the council approves it or doesn't. And so I guess I'm just trying to figure out where in this process something that is not what the council intended would happen. And I apologize to Councilor Carr. I'm not trying to like I'm just trying to understand how to make this whole, kind of.
I guess, I think they would like some promises that they're going to get what was put into the budget. But the fact that we're negotiating still
I know.
blows my mind that we can negotiate, but this is what we are gonna give you. And so I don't.
Yeah, it's not a great situation to be in.
It seems odd.
That was a tactical error.
I think so.
Any other discussion on this ordinance? I have just a couple of quick thoughts. The first, just I think responding somewhat to the public comments. I mean, I've said from the very beginning I would rather this be a like a levy or something like that. I know that's not the direction that we as a body ended up going, but I sympathize and agree with that. I did just want to say I think, although I appreciate the no taxation without representation piece, I also would echo Councilor Crocker that there is representation with the elected representatives, whereas during the American Revolution and the Boston Tea Party, the American colonies couldn't even elect people to Parliament. And so their protest with taxation without representation was the lack of elected representatives to make decisions about taxation rather than the lack of a direct vote on that taxation. Yeah, I had another thought that is now gone, but I struggle with this, and I hate that I struggle with it because I want to have the best police department in Oregon, and I want this to be the place that every police officer wants to work, and I want to make sure we get there. I just really have some just personal philosophical things about the use of utility bills for things beyond utilities. That was the other thing, is I just wanted to briefly respond to the comment about calling this a fee versus a tax. Yeah, you're right. I just want to be clear, that's not really our choice. Just if it's on the utility bill, it's called a fee. And if it's in the property tax statement, it's called a tax. So I hear what you're saying. I just wanted to say that if that's not us trying to like obfuscate something, it's just but the point stands. So I've always disliked the concept of using utility bills for things that aren't those sort of utility services. I understand so many cities are doing it. So many cities are doing it way more than we are. I understand the restrictions of Measure 5 and 50 mean that that's more necessary everywhere now. I'm not naive. I'm just sharing some of my position on that. So, yes, Councilor Salsa.
Just to speak to your comment, because I'm with you. And I also wanted to remind the council that we've actually had this conversation, that this is how about this is a kind of a stopgap measure because we're faced with funding deficit. And there was something that had to do, we just didn't have the timing to do with levy. Levy would be preferable. I think we all had agreed a levy would be preferable, to put it to the voters. And that would be the intention. This is now, this is to get us from point A to point B, and taking the point that once you pull the lever, right, you don't want to, but I want to go here saying, this is our one shot. I'm not coming back again to pull this lever again. That's my stance on it. This is a stopgap measure to be able to set things up to get some relief here and then get back to the voters to do it properly, because then we could just take the fee away. Then it wouldn't be a fee anymore. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying, this has nothing to do with really the subject matter, but it's just in response to what you're saying, because I agree.
Yeah.
I think that this is not the ideal way to do it, but given that we did a lot of work and the staff has done an incredible amount of work of basically taking that fee from $14 to potentially $5. And there's a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah.
That part was tough.
Yeah.
That was tough to vote on that, because we had a lot of things that's like, we could have actually used that. But I mean, we're all faced with that. We're faced with that in the current economy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So from that standpoint, I think we're doing a great job of representing the voice of our community by taking the position of this is necessary in order to make the budget that we approved work. And part of that budget, the focus of this is specifically in the police department. And that's basically where we said, that's where we want this to go. We shaved off everything else that basically left. The only thing that was left that we didn't shave, not that we didn't attempt to shave, but that we didn't shave off was the funding for the police department, and specifically to meet their budget need.
Yep.
And that's what this is. It's to meet the budget need. They then can take that and then they can complete their negotiations, and in good faith, once that happens, then we know what we're faced with for 3 years, right? And we have that. Okay, now that's stable. This is stable. We still want to put more money away.
Yeah.
That's one of our goals. But that's kind of the long way around of saying that this is a sensible thing to do to keep our obligation to keep the city well funded, and to provide the services that the citizens expect. It's not the ideal necessarily, that's my opinion, but it works.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get off my soapbox then.
No, you're good.
I just want to point out that Corvallis has like $65 in fees added onto their utility bill. We are very modest in comparison at $5 compared to 65. And just unfortunately, it is a way to make the funding work for other towns too. It's not just us.
Well, and I want to echo particularly a combination of what Mayor McMorrin said and Councilor Salsa, that it's not the mechanism I would have chosen given a time and scale that's infinite, but or even moderately larger
Yeah,
than the
sure,
one
yeah.
we ended up working with. And then given the constraint from 5 and 15, I always mess up the
Yeah.
numbers. But at this point, I see it as the most effective pathway forward to be soundly operated for the next year at least. But I am in agreement that I also like to, as, you know, it should be added in planning that we move away from the fee-funded system, ideally.
Yes.
I'm gonna just give a couple words of support for the fee as opposed to the levy. The levy is kind of being heroed, and I'm very proud of the fact that the city hasn't had to impose a levy on its residents in a very long time. In the late 2000s, we did a levy for parks, and we had a 5-year levy, and there was a specific plan of what the money was going to go for. The money got used for the parks, and after the 5 years, the levy went away, and we haven't been back to the residents to ask for a levy since. It's over 20 years. We've not asked for additional funding by way of a levy, and I think that's something we should be commended for.
Absolutely.
We've also not gone out and done construction bonds, right? We've saved up money, we've borrowed money, we've gotten grants and money from the state. We've not had to go out and do massive bonds, right? And again, we've seen that with other organizations with our taxing district that have done levies for operations for years and now bonds and all that. And again, I think the city has a long track record of being fiscally responsible and not having to use levies and bonds on our residents and increase taxes. We have relied on fees. We have a street fee that's been in place for a long time that pays for maintenance on our streets that otherwise we don't get from the state or from gas taxes, because we don't have a local gas tax where we're charging local residents for gas, right? So there's things that we don't charge residents that many other cities do charge that we just go without, but we do make it up in a fee on our streets. We do a fee for stormwater, right? So we do have fees like many other cities do. This is an additional fee for that additional service of police service that we've been providing.
Yeah.
My other distaste of a levy is you've got to convince residents that this is a 5-year commitment. And even if it's not a 5-year commitment, we might only need this fee for a couple of years. But yet, if we were to go the levy route, you can't really convince, say, hey, we just need the levy for 2 years. It's a 5-year levy, and after you get 2 years, you can always choose to not go forward. But you're still convincing the residents and the voters, it's 5 years, it's a 5-year commitment. This fee can be much shorter term, and I think that's a benefit to residents as well, that this can be seen as a temporary stopgap, get us where we need to be. We've talked about urban renewal coming back in and those dollars coming in that may make this fee unnecessary sooner than 5 years out. And these were all things that the council talked about early on, and I think some of that message has been lost along the way. But there was a conscious decision by the council to look at the fee as a benefit, and because of the benefits over the levy. And it wasn't just timing, and it wasn't just, we don't have the time. Guy, we wish we could do the levy and tax everybody based on their property tax value. You know, a $5 per month fee is $60 a year. You know, do that on math on property taxes, that's just too hard. Property tax is based on your property value. So a high value property in Philomath is gonna pay much, much more than a much lower value property. And, you know, compared to like $60 per household across the board for police services, whether your house is worth $1 million or your house is worth $300,000, are you using that much more police services than somebody who's in a house that's smaller or has smaller value? The $60 flat fee, which is what is now, or $5 per month, or even at the $14 per month, is a more even way of distributing the cost of police services to a community where everybody's getting essentially equal benefit of that service. So there are pros and cons to it. I'm just putting some more of the pros out there that were kind of lost from 4 months ago when we really started talking about that. There are some benefits to the fee that we'll be getting the benefit of if we're able to get this passed tonight.
I guess I just want to say I'm concerned about us getting too far down the road of the idea of this being a stopgap. I think that'd be great, but just the way the math worked out in the budget, we're anticipating using the urban renewal funding to make up the other cuts to the general fund. So there would need to be pretty significant growth in the tax base to make up the other cuts in the general fund and make up the police services fee. I'm not saying that won't happen. I just want to be clear to anyone listening and to us that we shouldn't talk about this as inherently being a stopgap, because we don't know what that tax base would look like.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Oh, Councilor Andrade?
And just bringing it up as a reminder because it's my thing. Just remembering to prioritize looking into time, manner,
Time, place, and manner.
thank you, and place manner for cannabis, because we can use funds from that to fund our police. So. And just looking more creatively at other kinds of funding and.
It wouldn't be a city council meeting without that, so thank
You know.
Okay, any final discussion? Okay, then.
Not to put pressure, I just want to do logistics a little bit, so please don't feel pressure. But just the way we don't do ordinances a lot. So we'll do a first reading, have a roll call vote. If it's unanimous, we'll do, if it's unanimous, then it passes and we're good to go. If it's not unanimous, then it's going to come back. My recommendation would be that we come back on the 4th week of this month, so on the 27th, that we would come back, and this would be more than likely, I would say it'd be the sole agenda item. Usually we'll find a couple other things to add on there. But we'll be looking at a second meeting on the 27th. This will come back for a second reading and a second vote at that time, just so we can get that emergency clause enacted and we can start letting people know before August that the fee's gonna start on August, right? So that would be the intent. Again, it would start in August, they wouldn't make the payment until September. So, yeah, I think that's it. If we're ready, we can have a reading and a roll call.
Okay, city recorder, would you like to read? Oh. I think she might just dropped out.
Probably did something else.
Yeah. Sorry.
Wait, sorry.
Pause.
One
Councilor Case.
One final thought, I don't know if this makes sense or not, but so if everyone voted yes on the budget, to vote no on this, that doesn't seem to follow.
I guess, but, sorry.
No, and that's kind of what I thought, like, I don't know if that fully makes sense.
Yeah.
Voted yes on the budget, to vote no on this doesn't follow.
Yes, I hear that.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how I'm gonna vote. We'll find out in. I think in my mind, I could defend that because I support that amount of funding for the police that is in the budget, but I would rather the different mechanism be used to raise that
This is the
funding.
mechanism, not.
So I guess that it's two separate, it's like that was how much we're spending, and then this is where are we getting it from, and this isn't. I guess that would be my response to that,
Right.
whether or not.
And I can understand, I can understand that.
Yeah.
Conceptually,
Yeah, whether or not.
But if
you
it
agree.
doesn't pass, we're gonna have a $200,000 plus deficit in revenue in the budget this year, right?
Well, maybe not 200,000, but
$5 per month per household, is just over $200,000
for a calendar year.
for the fiscal year.
Yeah, you're right. Yes,
Yeah.
sorry, yes. If there is an election in November. So,
The election's not gonna change the budget that's been approved.
well, if there's a levy, I guess it's.
Yeah, but we won't make this year's levy.
We can. I'm just answering Councilor Caseman's question. Because, I mean, filing deadline's August something, is that right?
We had a conversation, you're right, we had a conversation with the budget committee, and I think I pretty strongly recommended that you're not gonna have success on a
I know.
campaign for a levy if you start a month before ballots come out, 2 months before ballots come out. So
I know about campaigns.
I trust you do.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, then can we read the ordinance?
Ordinance 895, an ordinance adopting Philomath Municipal Code, Chapter 3.26 regarding a police services fee and establishing an effective date. Read it again.
I think, yeah, do we need to read it again?
Yeah, wait a second.
Ordinance 895, an ordinance adopting Philomath Municipal Code, Chapter 3.26 regarding a police services fee and establishing an effective date.
Perfect. And then can you call the roll?
Jessica Andrade.
No.
Diane Crocker.
Yes.
Spencer Irwin.
Yes.
Brent Caseman.
Yes.
Christopher Warren.
No.
Rich Salsa.
Yes.
Okay. So the vote is 4-2, so this will come back at the end of the month. So, you seem like you have a thought.
I do. Lots of thoughts, but I won't say them. Do we need unanimous vote at the end of the month or just a majority?
It's just the charter says we, like,
Sure.
everything is supposed to take 2 meetings to pass, so we can bypass the 2 meeting requirement and pass it unanimously. Okay, which then means I'm assuming we're skipping resolution 2623 while we're.
Wait till the end of the month. Yeah.
Okay, then with that, we'll go into executive session. So, the Paloma City Council will now meet in executive session for the purpose of consulting with counsel concerning legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.6602H, which allows the council to meet in executive session. Designated staff, the news media, and other designated persons shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. No final decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the public back into the room. I would remind the council members and staff that the confidences in this executive session belong to the City Council as a body and not to the individual members. These confidences should only be disclosed if the City Council as a body approves such a disclosure. If a member or staff person does not believe they can maintain these confidences, I would invite that member or staff person to leave the room. I think that's what it says. Thank you. Okay, so now we'll take a quick pause as we shift the recording.
We have an agenda.
I think you said you
There's an agenda item summary that either got handed out or.
Is there a second link or should I stay online here? Should I just wait here? Is that right?
Stay here.
Stay here.